The certification tests really ask you to take a broad overview of the platform and understand how the pieces and the capabilities provided on the platform can be used to fit together in order to deliver a solution for a customer.
Certification proves that an engineer not only has that real-world experience, but also has the technical knowledge to be able to be certified and to operate at the level that is required.
What certification offers that experience doesn't is peace of mind. I'm not only talking about self-confidence, but also for our customers. Having us certified working on their projects really gives them peace of mind that they're working with a partner who really knows what they're doing.
Hi guys, so today I'm going to walk you through how to set up a quick Lapse account, make it public, and get your public profile link. So, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to quicklapse.com. You're going to click the join button. You're going to click either sign in with Google or create an account via this form. So you're going to click sign in with Google if you want to, and it'll just ask you to select a Google account, and then it'll ask you to agree to terms of service. I've already done that, so it's right here. You can see if you have an icon up here, that means you're signed in. You're then going to click the profile button right here, and you're going to click make badge profile public. This basically means that whenever you earn a badge, if people go to this link right here, they can see all the badges that you've earned. So you can share this with your friends, or if you ever need it for another service, you can just give someone. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to use Kumospace. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to this link right here, kumospace.com/cloudcoach. It's going to take you to a page that looks just like this, and you're going to want to click one of these three sign-in buttons. I'm going to use sign in with Google. So it'll probably prompt you for what account you want to use, and for me it just selected it by itself. It'll then, once you're here, it'll probably prompt you and say, hey, can I have camera access? Can I have microphone access? You're going to want to just click allow, and you can select what all you want here. You can also change your name for your little icon that shows up inside each room. So then you're going to want to click the join button. Then you're going to want to click on one of these three lobbies. You can see how many people are in each lobby, so you're probably going to want to find a lobby that has someone else. There's no one here right now.
Hi, welcome to the Google Cloud Computing Foundations course. My name's Jimmy. This course aims to provide individuals with little to no background or experience in cloud computing a detailed overview of concepts covering cloud basics, big data, and machine learning, and where and how the Google Cloud Platform fits in. The course will start with an overview of cloud computing and then dive deeper into two areas: cloud computing infrastructure and big data and machine learning. By the end of the course, you'll be able to articulate concepts around cloud computing, big data, and machine learning, and demonstrate some hands-on skills. The Google
Hello, my name is Jillian, and I'm the DSC lead of Hofstra University. And welcome to the 30 Days of Cloud, Week 2, Day 1. And yeah, we will be hosting today's event. So for those who haven't come to last week's event, the 30 Days of Cloud campaign is a GDSC community event in which 16 different universities and colleges across North America will be hosting a different event each day. And this series is especially useful for students with little to no experience in cloud computing, and it will build a good foundation for different career paths too. And these are just some important links to keep in mind as you go through the campaign. So Cloud Coach is where you can find the live stream for the events for each day. You can also register to have your skill badges count towards your school's total skill badges. You can also view the dashboard to see the different skill badge totals for each school. The Quick Labs is where all of the labs that we'll be using for this campaign will be located. We highly recommend that you open the Quick Labs in an incognito window. So if you're having any difficulties logging in to Quick Labs at all, just try opening it in an incognito window, and that will most likely solve any issues that you're having. However, if you're still having some technical difficulties, you can come on to Kumo Space, which is our community space for this campaign that we'll be using. And anytime we're having any technical difficulties, you can just hop into Kumo Space and someone will be there to help you. So why would you participate in this campaign? Well, it's especially useful for anyone who's looking to build a career in any of these career paths. And since you don't really need any knowledge coming into the campaign about Google Cloud, it will build a very strong foundation for you to build on top of through hands-on labs. And here's just a list of all the labs that we'll be doing throughout the 4 tracks of the 30 Days of Cloud campaign. Today, we'll be covering 2 labs from the Cloud Computing Fundamentals track, and we'll be learning how to create a virtual machine and also a brief intro to App Engine in Google Cloud. So as you go through these cloud modules, you'll be eventually earning these skill badges, and that will be posted to your Quick Labs account. And here are some examples of skill badges that you can earn through different cloud modules. So by participating in this campaign, you're not only going to be developing a foundation in Google Cloud, but it will also pave the way for you to keep building and keep polishing your Google Cloud skills with more intermediate and then more advanced level courses. So what exactly is a skill badge? It's a digital badge that demonstrates your growing Google Cloud skill set. And you can earn them by completing a series of labs. And at the end of that series, you'll have a final challenge lab. And once you finish that lab, you can then earn a Google Cloud skill badge with your network. And how you would do that is you have to make your Quick Labs profile public, which will then provide you with a link that you can share with your network. And here's Dalton. He will explain to you how to do that.
Yeah, so we're going to quickly sync up the Quick Labs profile, and we'll also go through the cloudcoach.dev side of things. So give me 1 second. This is what it should look like if you just go to quicklabs.com. If you're not signed in yet, you'll probably have a little sign in button right here that'll allow you to sign in. But what we're going to do is we want to go and make our profile public, and then we're going to go get registered for the cloudcoach.dev website. So the first thing I would do is I would click profile. I'm sorry, I'm actually going to click public profile. I believe it looks a little bit different if your profile is already public or not public. Currently, my profile is public. But you want to click over in this menu, you're going to click profile. And if your profile isn't public, you'll see a little button right here that says make my profile public. It'll be a big button. You can't miss it. But that'll allow you to actually get your Quick Lapse link. So you can see my profile is already public, but I'm able to grab the link right here. And then we're going to head on over to the cloudcoach.dev website. This website has a couple of great features. I would just take a minute and go through those really quick with everyone. So you can see all of the labs down here. But the two main things I want to really point out are the ability to register. This is what you're going to use that Quick Lapse badge profile link for. So when you go through this registration process, on the second page, it's going to ask you for that URL, and you're going to want to make sure you paste it in there and paste it in exact. That way you're able to actually enroll in the competition. And that competition is to see which schools have the most badges. And we have a little sort of gamification aspect there. But that's all actually being kept track of on the dashboard. So this is still not totally updated. This will be updated within the next day or so. And hopefully that'll show all of the badges, and we'll see which schools are getting all their badges, and it'll be really fun to check out. The next thing I want to go over is the Kumo space. I just saw a question in the chat. I want to just go over that really quick. So someone asked, we only have to register once, right? Yeah, that is correct. Once you register once, we have the information that we need to pull out the badges. So we have that ability, so we're all good there. Next thing I'm going to go over is the Kumo space. So as Jillian mentioned, if you're having any difficulties at all within the lab, or even if you just want to hang out, we have this community space up here. So if we click on that, I'm going to be able to pull it up. And that takes me into the Cloud Coach community space. So if I hit join, I see a bunch of people in lobby 1. So I'll go and hang out over here for a minute. So we can see everyone's over here. We can wave hi. And then feel free to come here and hang out. We have a couple other people who are in here who are able to help you out with your work while you're working on these labs. So I'm going to hop out of there. And then we're going to head back and just do a quick introduction before we get into the rest of the lab. So I'm going to bring Jillian back. And we'll go from there.
All right, so then once you've fully completed the 30 Days of Cloud courses, you can share all of your badges with your network and be proud of all of the hard work you've accomplished throughout the campaign. So first, we're gonna go over Dalton's lab, which is using App Engine in Google Cloud.
Okay, so we're going to get into App Engine. We're going to do the labs a little bit out of order. One of our core team members is going to be going over the introduction to the VM a little bit later. But to get started, we figured we would start with a little bit of Python. So one of the things we want to do is there's the go.quicklabs.com/heystudent. You can feel free to copy that into your browsers. I'll pull it up right over here. Hey student. This is in my cache pages, so I went through that. But you can see this code right here. You're going to be able to click the copy code right here. That's the first step you're going to take. And then we're going to be working in the Cloud Computing Fundamentals lab. So you can click on that one. And it'll ask you for your code. You're going to be able to implement that code right there. And that should give you access to the labs. I already have all my credits, so I'm not going to enter that code. But if you don't have your credits yet, that's how you get them. And then you can navigate down here and you'll see all of these labs. The labs we're going to be working on this week are the Creating a Virtual Machine Lab and the App Engine Quick Start Python Lab. The previous labs that were covered were in the so what's the cloud anyways? And then next week, going forward, they're going to be doing the Cloud Functions Lab and all the rest of the labs. So definitely make sure to stay tuned for that. But getting into the App Engine Lab, I have that pulled up, and I'll give everyone a minute to pull that up. I know we're kind of going out of order here, so it's a little bit hectic. But just to introduce this lab, App Engine is a platform as a service model, which means that you're able to access web servers and stuff like this one's using Flask. This lab goes through the process of using Flask, and you don't have to worry about any of the server code behind that or anything like that. You just need to implement your Flask server. And that's really great for two reasons. If you don't know a lot about servers and you don't really want to work on those and possibly have any delays that would come from learning to set up and run your own servers, you have that option. But it's also really cost effective because you're not paying for a server to be up full time. They have that load balancing and that dynamic cost model that allows you to avoid having to directly pay for things as you pay for your usage, not for owning a virtual machine. So that's pretty awesome. What we're going to do now is we're going to get started in the lab. If anyone needs me to slow down at all, please let me know. I'll keep an eye on the chat and make sure everyone's following along. But the first things I like to do when I'm doing these labs is I like to take a look at the overview, just make sure I know what we're doing. Hey, sorry, how did we get to this page? Yes, so from the Hey Student page, once you click copy this down, you enroll. You go to Cloud Computing Fundamentals lab, and it's going to ask you to input a code. I already have my code input, so normally you would copy and paste right here, and you'll need to fill out an I'm not a robot. I'm a little scared of filling that one out because who knows, I might be. But after you fill that through, it'll take you to this page. And then what you're going to do from here is you're going to scroll down a little ways. And you're going to open up this Use Google Cloud to build your apps. So that's the one you're going to want to open up. And then you're going to go down to this lab, the App Engine Quick Start Python Lab. Later in the session, we're going to be going through the Creating a Virtual Machine Lab, but we're doing them a little bit out of order just to get started right now. So I'm going to head back to this. Once you click on that, though, it should take you into this lab. I'm just doing it on this account because I have the credits here. So we should be all set, though. But one of the things I like to notice for App Engine, it supports Java 7, Java 8, Python 2.7, Go, and PHP. So it's a wide variety. But the specific Python support that we're using right now is going to be a Flask server. And as I was mentioning earlier, we talked about the automatic scaling and load balancing, as well as like the integrations and all of that stuff. So that's all there, and you can definitely take the time to read through this if you're not in the middle of the session, because there's a lot of information in here, and it's pretty great. So, but I usually just scroll down, make sure I understand what I'm doing. I usually stop right about when we get to the first step, which is activating the Cloud Shell. I highly recommend, if you have two screens, use two screens because you don't want to be going back and forth. I'll show it all on one screen. That way everyone can see what I'm doing. But if you have a second monitor, feel free to use it. It works great. So what I'm going to do is hit Start Lab. And there's a really essential... Okay, I don't think I'm signed in. Give me 1 second here. All right. So if you see that error message, which was telling me I had to like launch it with a credit or something, you don't want to do that. You want it to say use subscription right here. That's exactly what we want to see. So I'm just going to hit use subscription because that'll use one of my tokens that I have available. You get 10 with the Hey Student thing, I believe. And you can see it starts my lab. It gives me all this login credentials here. Now, the really essential part here is you've got to open this in incognito window, or 9 times out of 10, you'll have trouble. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to right click. I'm going to hit open link in incognito window. And you'll see that pops up a Google sign in. And you'll note it already populates that login credential for me. And if you just check here, that's the actual GCP instance for my test run. Like pull up the actual lab. You'll see right here, that's the same code. It will give you a password. I'm going to copy that down. Switch back to my incognito window. I'll hit next. It'll ask for a password. I'm going to paste that in. And then I'm going to hit next again. So that'll sign me into Google Cloud Platform. And this is an actual GCP instance. So there's 100% exactly what you'd see if you go into the normal Google Cloud Platform under your account. You'd see this exact same system. And the first step of the lab, I'll swing back to lab in a second, but I know that the first step is to activate that Cloud Show. So we'll just click that. It's going to start itself up. And while it's starting itself up, I'm going to go back to the instructions just so that we can go over this a little bit more in depth here. So we already got through all that part. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. But we're getting right down to this first section. So first section, it just wants us to do a check. And this is in the other lab as well. It has you run a check just to make sure your Google Cloud Console is signed in and everything's good. So it has you run this Gcloud auth list. You're able to copy that if you would like. If not, I'll show you a trick for typing these in. So if I were to actually go and type this in, I can type Gcloud. I can type AU, for example, just as I'm starting to type out auth. If I hit tab, it actually can autocomplete. So if I do Gcloud auth list, I'm able to just type LI or LIST and it autocompletes it once I hit tab. And it'll throw up this little message saying authorize. You can hit authorize. It will tell us your account's active. Here's your account. Feel free to run this command if you would like. Don't run that command. It's not super necessary. That's just if you want to change accounts or such. So going back to lab, the next thing it has us do is just check what project we're in. So Gcloud config list project. So we'll head back here into our GCP, Gcloud. I already forgot the command, I'm sorry. Gcloud config list project. I'm just going to copy this one in. Make it a little bit easier on myself. Paste. And you'll see that gives you a project ID, and that project ID will exactly match this one here in your Quick Lapse. So now that we got that all set up, now we're actually going to enable the App Engine API. And from my experience, this one's been activated like 90% of the time already, but we'll still go over it just to make sure everyone knows what's happening. So we're going to go into APIs and services, and we're going to click library. What that'll do is it'll bring up a search window of all the APIs that Google has available for you. So you see maps, you see places, you see roads, but we want the specifically the admin SDK API for App Engine. My bad. App Engine admin SDK API. There we go. There it is. Sorry, I messed up my search term a little bit. But if you go into that one, you'll see, I think the lab says it would say enable. If it says enable for you, you can just click through that. But most of the times I believe those are enabled for me. But all you'd have to do is confirm those enabled. There's some documentation down here if you would like to check that out. Great place to understand what's happening. Highly recommend that. We'll just click manage to move on. We can see some of the instance. But the next thing we're going to do is actually get started with the real actual components of the lab. So I'm just going to go to the main page because we don't need to be in this API section. So the next section of the lab, I'm going to pull it up here. So we went through this whole App Engine admin API thing. We got that all set up, and now it wants us to download the Hello World app. So it gives us this little gsutil command. I'm going to copy that down. And we'll go through that command and what all that's doing. So I'll paste that in my Cloud shell. So some other things, just that like we can see what the context is, what we're doing. We're accessing the gsutil tool. -m, I'm not exactly sure what that one means, to be honest. I tried the help tool, couldn't find much on it. CP, that's usually copy. -r, that's usually recursive, meaning we're probably dealing with a folder of some kind. And then we have the gs:// that might look like a weird URL, but that's actually a Google storage URL. So all those GS, that's usually stands for Google Storage. And then we have that dot at the end, which is just, I'm assuming, some file name or something. It's another argument for that function. But all we have to do is hit enter. It'll download a bunch of files. And what we can do is we can just list out all our files, and we see the Python docs samples in there. So I'm going to CD into that one because we're going to be working with some of the code in there. So you can do it I believe in the actual lab, they have you just copy and paste a command. You can do that. That's perfectly fine. I'd always just go through. I like to look around in some of these files, see what I can find. So I just go in manually sometimes. I just type out ls so that everyone can see what I'm doing here. But now we're into the actual folder. So you can see we've got a main.py file here. We've got a couple other text files. And now we'll go back to the lab and we'll see what's next. All right. So now we have it downloaded. It wants us to test this application. So it has us type out this dev appserver.py app.yml. So we'll head back to our console. We'll paste that in. And again, you can you just type this in, type dev_a, hit tab. It should autocomplete app.yml, autocompletes again. But we're just going to hit enter. I will tell you that Python 2 is deprecated. Doesn't matter. It won't affect anything, so you should be all good. But it's going to uninstall and reinstall a bunch of libraries, make sure it has everything it needs to run, all of that good stuff. So we'll give that 1 second while it's installing. We'll just take a look back at the lab. So after that, we're going to be able to preview it so that we can take a look at what's actually happening. So we'll head back to that lab. And it looks like it might be started up. Looks like it. So we'll try and run the web preview and we'll preview it. And as you can see, it is up. So you can see the hello world showed up and that gave us a nice message. So you can leave that tab open. We'll go back to GCP and we'll do a little bit to modify that file. So I'm just going to head back to the tab here. If you don't have it look exact, you can go talk to people in the Kumo space. They can help you out definitely with that. So now we're going to make a change. And to do this, we need to open up another terminal. We're going to go back into that folder, and we're going to start messing with main.py. So to do that, we're going to come back here. Since this version of the terminal is currently running that Flask web server, we're just going to hop over here and create another one. And then we're going to CD into the Python docs, App Engine, standard Python 3, hello world. And now you can see we're back here. And what we're able to do now is we want to open up a text editor to make some changes to this main.py. And you don't need to know too much Python to do this. If you're implementing a full-scale app with this, you probably want to learn a little bit of Python. But for this lab, we're not doing anything too complicated. So you can see we're setting up the Flask app. That's the first line. We're importing Flask, setting up the app. And when we're defining our root, so our root is the slash. And the lab instructions just want us to do hello cool world. Probably a little Halloween thing, maybe. Seems a little harsh, but we're just going to put hello cool world. I just would confirm, make sure everything I did is correct. So it wants us to say hello cool world. And then we're going to reload the web page after we save this. So to save this, we're just going to hit Control X. It'll ask us save modified buffer. We want to hit yes. And it asked us what file to save it to. Just hit enter what you want to save it to main.py because that's where that's where the file is looking for. So if I go back here, you'll see it first says hello world. But if I want to refresh, there we go. It now says hello cool world. So now if I go back to this lab, it'll tell us to deploy it. And it says to deploy it to whatever region you're closest to. So we can go do that now. And we're still on time. So I'm going to head back to GCP. I'm going to close that down. And I'm going to Gcloud. I think it was app deploy was the command. Just confirming Gcloud app deploy. How do you open the test page? Good question. So for opening the test page, you want to first make sure that that this other terminal that we had running is still running. And then you can hop over to either one, doesn't matter, but make sure that first terminal is running. And then you have this web preview button right here. So you click that web preview and click preview on port 8080. And that shows you that test page. So I might not have made that exactly clear. I have a tendency to sometimes skip some stuff. So apologies there. But that's how you open up that test page. Going back to the rest of the lab, though, we're just going to type out Gcloud app deploy. And then it's going to take a second. What this is doing is it's actually sending your app out into the world. So it's asking me to pick my closest section. So I'm located in the US East, so I'll type out 18. This can be whatever area you're closest to. Feel free to choose that one. But then you see it's going to create the project, and it'll actually start uploading files. It'll upload, I believe, 5 files into the into GCP. And I believe here's what it's telling us. Do you want to continue? We'll just hit yes. And that'll start uploading the files. So once that's done, it should give you a URL to actually check it out. We'll wait 1 second there. But just scrolling down while we're doing the lab, it says to view in your application, you will be able to type Gcloud app browse. And then we're going to do that. And then we're closing in on the end. So in the home stretches of this lab. I believe we're still looking good on time here. Yep, we have another 5 minutes with this lab. It's always with the shorter labs that it's like you have plenty of time to do the labs. But since we're going over a couple extra things, I always just like to check and confirm, make sure everything's all good. It is taking a second to upload. But we'll be patient. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask in the chat, and we'll hopefully be able to answer those. So yeah. Okay, that's still taking a minute. Normally it doesn't take this long. There we go. All right, just a split second later. So now it's telling us we didn't type that Gcloud app browse to actually check out our web server. So we'll actually do that, and we'll give you this link. So if I click that, it'll bring me up to that same website that we saw earlier, except now it's publicly hosted. Theoretically, anyone could go to my public link, and you could see this, and you would see the exact same page I'm seeing. So that's really neat, and that is a great system for like if you need a web server, like that was really easy. Just a couple of clicks, and we had a Flask server set up on GCP. It's that easy. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. So just to make sure we're getting through the lab, there's this check your progress, which it'll actually go into your project. It will check to make sure your website is looking correct. So you can check your progress. Mine came back that was all good, so we're all good there. And then the last step to finish this lab and get the badge for this lab is to actually finish this last question. So this is something we covered earlier. I don't know if I went over it a lot right at that time, but there are many different programming languages that supports. So we're able to actually run it in Python 2.7, Java 8, Java 7, Go, and PHP. So that's all of them. So we'll click that, hit submit. We got it. So now we're finished. We should get that badge in our public profile. And then you're ready for the next step of the lab. Really quickly, just since we have like 2 minutes on the lab, I just want to show something really quickly that I didn't know if I was going to be able to get into. What's really nice about the Cloud Shell is there's a bunch of different ways you can access this. And we're going to get into that a little bit with the VMs. But one of the really nice things about this is you can remember that gsutil command that I didn't know exactly what did earlier. If I type gsutil help, it shows me everything that I can do with gsutil. It tells me exact usages, like, oh, you have the header tag, you have the -m tag, you have your commands, you have your arguments. It tells you everything about that. So that you know exactly what you're doing. They have great documentation on that. It's really helpful if you're starting to get lost in your own projects. You always have that help command that can always help you out right there. So definitely play around in Google GCP a little bit, and you'll pick up some of those nice tricks. So I believe that is the end of this lab. I'm going to close out my GCP session. And since I finished the lab, I'm going to hit end lab, and I'll submit it. So I have it rated 5 stars. I'll just cancel out of that. And I believe now we're going to have Jan, who's going to go over the lab we skipped over for a little bit. He's going to talk about the VM lab. So I'll bring Jan up here, and if anyone has any questions on the last lab, we'll take questions for a couple minutes before getting into it.
All right. Thanks again, Dalton. You can confirm you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jan. I'm a technical lead over at Hofstra University, the same university as Dalton. And today we're going to be going over just one of the labs, which is creating a virtual machine. To be more specific, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going into just how to use or how to create a virtual machine with Google, with the Cloud Console from Google. We're going to be using basically that virtual machine to connect to the Nginx web server. So if you don't know much about the Nginx web server, it's basically just a free open source HTTP server. It was one of a handful created to solve the 10,000 customer problem or client problem. So if you want a little bit more, there is some documentation towards the end of the lab that gets into a little bit more of what it is. So as we go through this, there's really no prerequisites for this lab. It should be a pretty straightforward lab. The most important thing is that you will learn with a little bit of the Cloud Shell. You will be learning with a little bit of the commands. So if you do have some experience with Vim, Emacs, or Nano, you'll probably find this very similar to that. Otherwise, before you get started with the lab, just important to remember, obviously you need a good source of internet connection. Chrome browser recommended. And then if you're using a Chrome OS device, then you'll just need to make sure that you run an incognito to run this lab. All right, so with all that said, I think it's about time for us to get started. So let me get into this. And I will launch with 1 credit. So basically, you will launch with 1 credit. Oh, looks like I got a little bit of an error. All right, let's see what's going on here. Ah, there we go. Oh man, I love these. No, apparently not. You gotta pick all the bridges. Okay, so now I think we can do this. And anytime now? Okay, perfect. All right, so let's open this in an incognito window. So basically, you want to open this in an incognito window just because it's a little bit easier, kind of prevents any sort of bugs. It's automatically going to paste in the email or account or username. And then you're just going to copy over the password, go back to that, and just paste that in. And then obviously you have to hit accept. Don't worry about most of this, just because when we're starting this lab, it's actually going to allow you to have access to these resources for about 40 minutes, which is the entire duration of the lab. So just make sure that you're minding your time. We'll be going through the lab pretty quickly, not quickly, but enough of a time to explain everything. So we shouldn't have too much to worry about. So obviously it's going to walk you through. You're just going to make sure that you copy the username and password. And then this is your project ID. So what you'll see here when we go back to the incognito window is you're going to see the Google Cloud Platform dashboard. So this is pretty much going to list out everything, including project info, resources, pretty much everything you're going to need for this lab. So the most important thing for us to do is obviously we're going to activate our Cloud Shell. So for anyone that doesn't know, the Cloud Shell is just the persistent 5 GB home directory. It runs on the Google Cloud. Just for this lab, we're just going to be able to use that. So let's get that started. So as you'll see down here, it pops up with a little dialog box, just explaining a little bit about the Cloud Shell. It might take like a minute or two for it to load up for you, but then you should be good to go. And as you see right here, it says, welcome to Google Cloud Shell. So session is set to this. So this is just good news for us. It means that we're kind of all set to keep going through. And then, so right here, so Gcloud is the command line tool for Google Cloud. It comes pre-installed on Cloud Shell and supports tab completion. So pretty much we could copy this. And if we pasted it into here, we just authorize that. So it just lists out the credentialed accounts that are active right now. So this is us, just for the purposes of this lab. So if you do want to get full documentation of Gcloud, just refer to this little hyperlink in here. And right here, they do list out some important things to understand with regions and time zones. So certain compute engine resources lives in certain zones or regions. So for this lab, we're going to have to be creating a new instance of our virtual machine. So some of these regions and time zones are going to be important to us. Again, we'll be using a preset one. So let's actually get into task one, which is creating a new instance from the Google Cloud Console. So on the Cloud Console, so let's navigate back to here. We are going to go into Compute Engine, and then we are going to go into VM instances. And it may take a little bit for you to load, so no worries if it does take a minute or two to load. Let me just make sure comments are good. If anybody has any comments or any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. And then the next step is we're going to have to actually create an instance of it. So there are many parameters you can definitely configure it to. But for this lab and its specific purposes, we're going to be following along with this right here. So just make sure to pay attention to that and go through it slowly when you're creating your instance of your virtual machine. All right, so the name for ours is going to be GCE Lab, so I'm just going to copy that and paste it. And then make sure your region and zones are correct. So let's refer back to that. So our region is going to be US-Central 1, and then our zone is going to be US-Central 1F. Yeah, so that looks like we're pretty set up. And then for series, there's something different that we do have to do. So for series, we're going to pick N1. So just make sure as you're going through this under series, you're just going to pick N1. And then for machine type, we're going to pick 2 virtual CPU. So just for anybody that's a little curious, this is a N1 standard 2, so it's a 2 CPU, 7.5 gigabyte RAM instance. And it does explain a little bit more about it, and then definitely does have some hyperlinks in here, so you can definitely click on them if you're curious. So as you can see right here, it does list out the gigabyte RAM memory allowed, and then also it does resonate with the 2V CPU one. So let's make sure that that's set up. And then just want to double check, you just want to make sure that boot disk does have these configurations set into it. This is preset for us, so you don't really need to change too much. And then the last step that you want to do is you just want to make sure that your firewall does allow HTTP traffic. So let's make sure that we enable that. And then you should be all set. And we'll just create it. And we can close this out. This is just a little learn tutorial that will pop out. You can exit out of this. Then you can always bring that up if you do want to refer to it for anything. And then obviously, we do want to make sure that you have SSH enabled right here if it's not already preset, but our lab is still loading, so we just have to give it a second or two. Oh, there it is. There.
Might have to reload. In the meantime, I think we got you back, right?
All right. Can you guys hear me? Everything good? Okay. Oh, geez. This is not going to be smooth sailing. We'll troop on though. Okay. So getting back to this, one of the most important things, so this is task 2, we're going to be installing an Nginx web server. So in the SSH terminal, you definitely want to make sure that you follow these prompts. So we have to get root access. So we do have to switch user. and we have to use the sudo terminology. So as you can see right here, see if I can make this a little bigger. So you do have to type in sudo, I think it was dash. Yeah, you can just copy the commands, but just for in the process of learning, I definitely would recommend typing them out. So there you can see that we're actually in the root user now. So that's what we're going to need in order to facilitate the rest of the lab. And then as a root user, we're going to have to update our OS. So it's just going to be apt-get update for time constraints. I'll definitely just copy this over. And then you'll see that it's going to go through a whole bunch of steps in order to get these updates. So just bear with it. Okay, perfect. So you'll get this confirmation right here, or you'll see this whole long list of different steps that it's going through, but then you should see something like this down here just to confirm your success, along with reading package list and then done. And then obviously they do tell you the expected output, so if you see anything different, definitely do make sure to post in the chat or just let us know. And then the second most important thing is we do got to definitely install the Nginx server. So I'll copy this over. This is the command right here. Just in case somebody has two screens, it would probably be helpful to have the actual shell and console on the one screen, and then on another screen the lab instructions, just so that way you're not constantly switching back and forth. But so after you type in install Nginx, or when you type in the command to install the Nginx server, you should have all of these sorts of steps following through. And then you just want to confirm that your Nginx server is running. So you want to use the following command, and you should get some similar output like this. So I'll demonstrate just using mine. Yeah, so as you can see right here, we have root, and then we have a couple of different lines indicating different things. So this is just confirming that you do have your Nginx up and running. And then you also want to confirm just by seeing that there's going to be an external IP. So let's just go back and let's just double check right here. So you do see that there is an external IP. That means we're good. And then we can click on it, and that should confirm that we have our Nginx server up and running. So this is confirmation right here. If you don't see this, definitely go through the instructions again, just make sure. When I first hit the lab, I accidentally made the mistake of actually doing most of these steps in here. So don't do that. And let me refresh this. Okay, cool. All right, and then obviously we want to check our progress. So you could just hit it right here, check your progress. All right, cool. So it looks like I'm not getting an error. So it means I haven't done anything wrong yet. And then we do want to get into task 3 of creating a new instance with Gcloud. So in the Cloud shell, so we're not going to be using this second one. We're going to be using the Cloud shell down here. So we are going to have to use the following command to create a new virtual machine instance from the command line. So we'll just copy that down. And then it might take a second or two, so that's pretty normal. Just give it some time to go through whatever instructions it needs to go through. Okay, perfect. So we have gotten confirmation. Cool, so now we can move to the next step. So the expected output is this right here. So let's see. Yep, we do have GCE Lab 2. So that looks like everything is checking out. So let's just check our progress again. So that's been completed. That was pretty straightforward. So some quick notes is that your new instance will have the following default values. So the latest Debian 10 Buster image, and then the N1 standard 2 machine type. So you can select one or the others, preferably either of these two. But again, for this purposes, we just have our presets. And then to see all the defaults run, you could definitely type in the following command: Gcloud compute instances create -- help. Again, there's a couple of notes about this here. And then, actually, I'll run through it just to make sure that everybody's able to follow along. Yeah. So right here, you see name, synopsis, bunch of different values. Now, if you want to exit out of it, you can just hit Control. I believe it was Control C. Yeah, Control C. Cool. And then in the Cloud Console, you'll have to just double check. So you want to make sure that yours is working. So just hit refresh. And what you should see is you should see a second instance. So you should see Gcloud 2. And what that's going to do is that's going to, and then what that's going to do is that's going to confirm that you have followed the instructions so far. And then, sorry. So you have to, then the next you have to go into, you have to use SSH to connect to your instance via Gcloud. So what we want to do next is we want to go back into our shell, and then just want to paste that command over. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, maybe I accidentally double copied it. Whoops. Okay. Just double check. Okay, now I copied it. Cool. Yeah, so it should give you a bunch of warnings. That's okay, don't worry about these. Then the next thing you want to do is you just want to confirm by hitting yes. So we don't have a passphrase, so you can just hit enter. And then since there's no passphrase, there you go. Yeah, so this is just confirmation that it's connected. So what we'll do is we will, yeah, so it's just gonna, you're just gonna type yes to confirm that you're continued, that you can continue. And then you're just gonna hit enter because obviously we didn't set any passphrases. And then after connecting, you can just disconnect from SSH by exiting from the remote shell. Yeah, and then there you go. And then you see how we just exited, so we logged out and connection was closed. So that was a pretty quick run through of the lab. It's a pretty straightforward lab. There are a lot of different links and hyperlinks if you definitely wanted to read a little bit more about some of the different virtual machines, some of the different Cloud Shell and different features. And then obviously if some things don't make sense, there's a bunch of help references that you can go into. So we might not have touched on this previously, but you could answer this question pretty straightforwardly. Through which of the following ways can you create a VM instance in Compute Engine? So if people remember, we created a VM both using the console and both using the Gcloud command line tool. So once you submit that, you're good. And then, so congrats, you finished this lab. So just important note to remember, this self-paced lab is part of the Quix Labs Google Cloud Essentials Quest. So a quest is a series of related labs to form a learning path. So make sure that when you're going through this lab, you're not only finishing this lab and obviously making sure that you complete all the steps, make sure that you're also going through the rest of the labs and whatever other content is in that quest. So that way you can earn your badge and definitely get recognized for your achievement. That's super important because just doing one lab doesn't qualify that the rest of the quest. So due to this, now that we finished, we are going to go ahead and end the labs. But if anybody has any questions, I'll definitely keep an eye open. I'm not seeing any questions. So yeah, so yeah, I think that was it. Dalton, did you see any questions in the chat at all?
No, I don't think I saw any questions. If you have any questions about the lab, about Google Cloud Platform in general, or just anything about the platform as a service or infrastructure as a service models, definitely feel free to let us know, because we can take some time and answer a couple questions if you have those now. But yeah, I think both labs went pretty well, so hopefully everyone was able to complete those. One of the things I saw was about the badges. I believe the badges are obtained after you have completed all of the quizzes and quests and labs in the given line. So if you complete all of the sessions, that's when you'll get the badges.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to clarify that up, because that is a recurring question. I believe that's the answer for that one.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So I guess I will stop sharing.
So I got another question here.
Sure.
Can we elaborate on what someone can build using these tools that we kind of showed off? And that's a really great question. One of the things I've done a little bit of research on is the platform as a service model. And as you saw, we went through that lab in less than 20 minutes. It was super easy to set up. We set up a Flask server. There's a couple other things you can do with that. And I need to take like a couple seconds to see if I still have that stuff pulled up. I do not. But you're able to, there's a whole variety of different stuff you can do on the App Engine platform. For example, you can have a Spring server. There's great documentation in GCP about how to set up Spring, which is a Java framework. You're able to set that up on App Engine, or probably just as easily as we were able to set up the Flask server. So that if you're interested in that sort of platform as a service model, but you don't know much Python and you know Java, that's a great option. I know the next set of labs that we're going to do in the Cloud Computing Fundamentals course is going to be on Cloud Functions. And that is arguably one of my favorite GCP services. I use that all the time. And that's another great service you can use. And that one, you have a whole variety of options. You can, I'm a mobile developer, so I'm able to write server-side Dart code in Cloud Functions. So that's something pretty cool. Well, that might be some support that's coming, I believe. Something with that exists, but it's a great source for a backend, especially because there's a lot of free tiers out there. There's a lot of free tiers out there, so you have the ability to host your backend. And what you saw with Python was we are hosting the front end as well. We are hosting that early part. Yeah, so I got another question here. They were asking about Flask. Are you able to run the code 24/7 or schedule to run periodically? You're actually able to do both. You can have it running 24/7, but that's not exactly that's one of the benefits of having the App Engine setup is if it needs to run 24/7, it could. But that's not necessarily what it's there for. It has that built-in auto scaling, so it can tell if it's being used, and if it's not being used, you don't want to pay for it, so you want to sort of have it shut off. But that's some of the differences between the platform as a service model and the infrastructure as a service model. With the infrastructure as a service, you have that. You set up the server. With the platform as a service, you're paying for what you use. So it has the ability to scale, but also has the ability to downscale.
All said.
Any more questions on anything about that? If we don't have many more questions, I think we're probably good. I know everyone's probably looking forward to getting back to those midterm preps or homeworks or whatever everyone has. But we really enjoyed having everyone here. We enjoyed going through the labs, and make sure you stick around because we have another whole section tomorrow in the infrastructure line. I am failing to deploy the app to app engine. Okay, so if you're able to give us the exact reason why it's failing, like if it's giving you an error message or something, that'll help us pinpoint the issue. But there's a couple things that you can try. I believe one of them in the lab just says try and deploy again, and that's with a PK something error. I'm not sure the exact error. But if you try and run the deploy again, sometimes servers get busy or something like that. So you can just try it again, and that might help you out. If they're still having difficulty deploying to App Engine, one of the things you want to make sure is you're running that right Python file and you're running it exactly as it says. So make sure you have the dev_appserver.py and then the app.yml as a parameter. That should help a little bit. And then it might also help make sure your auth user is set. So that's another thing you can check. And that's with the two commands at the very start of the lab. That's the Gcloud auth list. So make sure you're signed in and you're authorized. And then the Gcloud project, I can't remember the exact command, but it's the Gcloud project one, which lets you see your project ID and make sure it's set for the one in the Quick Labs lab. Those are some of the things that might cause an error to happen. And again, we're going to be available in the Kumo space, so we can help you out there. Any more questions? Are we all good?
I guess that's kind of good that nobody's asking questions about my VM.
So I'm not seeing many more questions. So would highly recommend everyone stick around for the rest of the courses. Make sure you get that badge. And I guess we'll see everyone at the next lab. So see ya.
The certification tests really ask you to take a broad overview of the platform and understand how the pieces and the capabilities provided on the platform can be used to fit together in order to deliver a solution for a customer.
Certification proves that an engineer not only has that real-world experience, but also has the technical knowledge to be able to be certified and to operate at the level that is required.
What certification offers that experience doesn't is peace of mind. I'm not only talking about self-confidence, but also for our customers. Having us certified working on their projects really gives them peace of mind that they're working with a partner who really knows what they're doing.
Hi, I'm Priyanka and welcome to the module Where Do I Store This Stuff? In this module, you will see how you can take advantage of managed storage and databases for cloud applications. So far in this course, you've learned what GCP is, why you should have a solid platform before beginning a GCP transfer, and how GCP supports the building of apps. In this module, you will learn about storage and database options in GCP. The objective of this module is for you to be able to implement a variety of structured and unstructured storage models. To achieve this goal, you will need to meet the following learning objectives. Discuss the different storage options that exist in the cloud. Differentiate between structured and unstructured storage in the cloud. Compare the role of the different cloud storage options. And explore the use case for relational versus NoSQL storage. You'll also describe leveraging cloud storage as unstructured storage, and explain relational database options in the cloud and describe the NoSQL options in GCP. These are the topics that make up the module. First, you will learn about the different storage options available in the cloud. Then you will see the difference between structured and unstructured storage, and how you can leverage unstructured storage using cloud storage. A hands-on lab will allow you to explore a range of activities applicable to cloud storage. You will then review the use case for SQL managed services. Next, you will explore Cloud SQL, and then complete another lab where you will import data into Cloud SQL and perform basic data analysis. You will discover how to leverage Cloud Spanner and explore the available NoSQL options. You will then learn how to use Cloud Data Store as a NoSQL document store. You will complete the module with an app development activity that requires you to store app data in Cloud Data Store. And then you will learn how Cloud Bigtable can be leveraged as a NoSQL option. The module will end with a short quiz and a recap of the key learning points covered in the module.